So we got some major astrology here. It is February 2nd, 2026, where I'm recording this now, and 6 days ago, on January 26th, Neptune entered Aries permanently after 15 years in Pisces, and 12 days from now, on February 13th, Saturn enters Aries officially, and 7 days after that, we have our first solar eclipse in Aquarius on February 17th, beginning a 1.5-year cycle of Aquarius-Leo eclipses, all right? And right in the middle of all of this energy, yesterday, we had a full moon at 13 degrees Leo. And I want us to pay very close attention to what happened in your body during that full moon moment. Not what you thought about it, not what your horoscope app told you, but what you actually felt. Where did your chest tighten? What made you want to hide? What made you want to be seen? Because this full moon is your introduction to the themes we're going to be wrestling with during the entire eclipse season. This is your first dramatic taste of an ongoing conversation about how we show up, how we're visible, and what truth we make visible in this world, and who that truth is serving. The astrology ahead for most of 2026 and onward is not the most pleasant, and I'm not going to sugarcoat any of that, but it is the most transformative, and we are all capable of rising to the collective assignment here. So this is what we're going to do. I'm going to cover the Leo full moon and what that's initiated. We're going to talk about the Uranus stationing direct in Taurus moment happening this week, and what that means for our bodies and our understanding of security. And then I'm going to cover what all of this is asking us to carry forward, because we're standing on a threshold right now between the old world that's dissolving and the new world we haven't built yet. So let's get into it. First up, we got this Leo full moon energy, and the configuration of this full moon was that the moon was at 13 degrees Leo, alone on one side of the sky, and opposite, we had 5 planets stacked up in Aquarius. We had the Sun, Venus, Mercury, Mars, Pluto, all of it in Aquarius. 5 planets of logic, detachment, collective thinking, revolutionary restructuring, all lined up against one emotional, dramatic, heart-on-sleeve moon that just wants to be recognized. And I want you to feel that configuration in your body for a second here. Like, what does it feel like when your need to be seen and to be special and to matter as an individual comes up against a collective moment that's demanding you to think beyond yourself? You know, when the world is saying, we don't have time for your feelings right now, we have systems to dismantle, what comes online for you? Because here's what Leo is actually about. Beneath all that pop astrology nonsense about ego and drama and needing applause, in evolutionary terms, Stephen Forrest writes that the purpose of Leo is the restoration of a feeling of trust relative to life. It's comfort relative to human society, and a simple, unambiguous joy at being alive and feeling like we belong somewhere. And underneath all that purpose is a wound, of course, and at times the fear of betrayal or something from the past that's damaged trust or comfort and joy. And Forrest says here that the Leo archetype carries a hurt or betrayal by the family that still haunts them. So what happens quite naturally is they conceal themselves behind authenticity. But even the shine of Leo conceals deeper waters, okay? And the way Leo heals from that wound is through genuine, vulnerable self-expression. Not performance, not posturing, not the gaudy, self-preserving theatrics we see in Leo's shadow. And we see this, of course, playing out right now with one of the most prime examples of a Leo rising in the mainstream culture, which is, of course, the delusional Cheeto himself, he whose name shall not be mentioned. And in this exhibit, You can watch how someone operating from shadow Leo will twist reality itself, will contort truth and expression and identity into whatever narrative makes them feel secure, makes them feel like they're winning, or makes them feel like a star. But here's what we actually need. We need Leo at its highest octave. We need truth that is magnetizing, that is powerful, that is expressive and creative and joyful and wearing its heart on its sleeve, but in service to something beyond one person's ego. There must be actual risk, actual vulnerability in what is being expressed. Leo says, I do want attention, and there is no shame in owning that need. But the part of me that prospers spiritually from that attention is my soul. And that's the loop Leo needs. It says, I express my soul while people express their appreciation of my soul. And for it to work, it must be a two-way street, you know? If I express something other than my soul, no matter how loudly they clap their hands, I am living on a diet of cotton candy. My soul is not nourished at all if it's inauthentic. So this full moon has been asking us and will continue to ask us as we do these eclipses in the Leo Aquarius axis. It will continue asking us, what are you truly expressing here? Is it your soul or your mask? And then, of course, we have this massive Aquarius stellium, of course, opposing this Leo moon. 5 planets demanding something from us. And Aquarius gets misunderstood as a lot of things. People think it's about being quirky or rebellious or just doing whatever you want. But evolutionary astrology tells us something different, that this process of figuring out who we really are, apart from what we have been trained to believe we are as a universal rite of passage, is what Aquarius is all about. This is the process of individuation. Individuation, okay? Not rebellion for rebellion's sake, not just being different to be different, but the hard, lonely work of separating your actual nature from all the conditioning you've received from your family, from culture and media and all that shit. And here's something to really understand here, that Aquarius can only do this work of individuation in the context of groups, in the context of social expectations and constraints and rules, very Saturnian. You cannot have a rebel without something to rebel against. You cannot have groundbreaking genius without some pre-existing ground to break. So, of course, Aquarius is drawn to groups, to causes, and to movements, but also has this deep need for personal freedom and independence as well. It's a paradox, and the paradox is the point. You know, right now, with 5 planets in Aquarius, the collective is making very fixed demands about who you should be, how you should participate, and what you should be fighting for. And some of those demands are legitimate, like we are in a collective moment that requires collective action, that requires us to think beyond our individual needs. But the shadow of Aquarius is conformity dressed up as rebellion. It's everyone repeating the same slogans, wearing the same clothes, performing the same version of woke or conscious or revolutionary, all the while believing they're thinking for themselves. And here's where it gets tricky. All cultures are conservative to a certain extent. Every culture, by definition, represents a set of values, norms, and tastes. And in every one of these cultures, there are people who embody and oftentimes rewarded for embodying these idealized versions of truth and social conformities. And then there's those who do not, who are often marginalized or worse, erased. And even radical movements and these progressive spaces, the communities that pride themselves on being open-minded, they all enforce conformity in their own way. And I know that's kind of uncomfortable, but like try questioning certain narratives in certain spaces and watch how fast you get labeled, dismissed, or even worse, cast out. Well, that's Aquarian energy for you. So let's go back to the Aquarius stellium, which is ultimately asking us here, Are you actually thinking for yourself, or are you just performing someone else's script? Are you individuating, or are you conforming to a more palatable version of this current moment? And that Leo moon, opposite all of this, is saying, but I still need to be seen. I still need to be recognized. I want to be recognized. My individual heart still matters. To which Aquarius says, yes, both things are true. And both the self and the collective have to be held at the same time. To add a little oomph to this conversation, on February 3rd, Uranus stations direct in Taurus. And now Uranus has been retrograde since September. And during that retrograde, it's been bringing shocks to our sense of security internally, very much what retrogrades are all about, an internal reckoning here with what is material security? Is anything stable anymore? Are our bodies safe in this moment? You know, Taurus wants embodied safety. Taurus wants to feel secure in your resources, in your body, in your physical reality. And Uranus has been asking, secure compared to what? Secure for who? I really think of the Four of Pentacles here in the tarot, of this character clutching tightly to 4 gold coins, sitting upon this gray, flattened environment, completely alone in a state of self-preservation. There is a holding in or back. There is concern here for what is to come or what has been, where they're holding tightly to their resources, right? This is the type of person who has confused what has been entrusted to him with something he owns. And that is the question Uranus and Taurus has been asking us to grapple with. Is security something you hoard for yourself, clutching it tighter and tighter and tighter until you can't even move anymore? Or is it something that can be redistributed and shared or circulated? And we've been watching this play out in real time. During the food stamp crisis, when people were really struggling to feed their families, we saw everyday people stepping up, sponsoring grocery bills. We saw food banks serving everyone, from people who've been below the poverty line for years to government officials who just got laid off. Uranus brought this revelation that security, as we understood it, was always conditional. But that was happening while Uranus was retrograde. So these revelations were happening internally, private reckonings with oneself. And now Uranus stations direct, so the internal becomes external. The private becomes public, and what was once personal realization becomes a collective confrontation here. And this is Uranus's final direct station in Taurus before it enters Gemini in April. So between now and April, this conversation about who gets security and who doesn't, who gets resources and who doesn't, who gets to feel safe in their body and who doesn't, that conversation is going to get loud, undeniably loud and in our faces. To which I say, really trust that your nervous system already knows what's happening here. It's been tracking all the instability, all the weird shit happening, and all of the mounting tensions. So the question here is, what are you going to do with that information? All right. Are you going to grip tighter to your resources? Are you going to hoard what you have and just hope it's enough? Or are you going to ask a different question? What have I been entrusted with that I've confused with something I own? Who do these resources actually belong to? Because none of this is promised. All of it is borrowed. And we have an opportunity here with this Uranus and Taurus transit to really renegotiate the terms and conditions of what security looks like for this new world we're building here. So this week, here are the questions we really need to carry here. Where and when does your chest tighten? When do your hands grip rather than open? That's the Four of Pentacles showing up in your body. Don't fix it, just notice it and let it teach you where you're hoarding and where you're afraid. Could be resources, could be a role, could be a version of yourself that you're clinging to because letting go of it feels like death. What are you willing to be visible for, even if no one claps? That is absolutely the Leo question. And it's the question that's going to follow us through the entire Eclipse series, where between these two historic thresholds right now. Neptune just entered Aries 6 days ago. We have Saturn entering Aries very soon. The first eclipse in Aquarius hitting on the 17th. So this isn't a moment to just sit it all out. This is a moment to figure out where you stand and what you're standing for. But the work isn't to feel certain here. The work isn't to have all the answers. The work is to hold the tension and to honor both the individual heart and the collective need. The goal here is to shine, but to also shine in service. All right, my love? So I'll see you next week for that Saturn and Aries moment and the eclipse breakdown. It's coming soon. And until then, really take care of yourselves and each other. Throw yourself into service very loudly and proudly like a heart of a lion. Please, if you want to join me and want to join my private membership community, check out the collective. Right now, there's a 30-day free trial. You'll get personalized horoscopes, courses, workshops, you name it. All of it is there in the description below. Thank you for being here. Thank you for listening. Bye for now.